Hannah, it's Tuesday, and today I'm going to talk about the Occupy movement because I think it's interesting. Go away, no one likes you. I'm gonna cut you all off, and that is a threat. Now I'm going to separate the Occupy protests into those that are actually protesting sort of the general Occupy message and those that are protesting the police brutality that has come as a response to the Occupy message protest. Because they're different, and I agree totally with one and kind of with the other. So with the Occupy message, I know a lot of people, including myself, have a hard time figuring out exactly what they're protesting, because the problem is it's sort of this name, Occupy, that has kind of been given to all these different protests for all these different things. It's like all branched under this movement. And what it generally is, I think, is not necessarily just financial gap, clothes, but more of a just feeling that something is currently not right in the country, and people are just upset and they want to protest that fact. That's kind of how it seems to me. I read a Rolling Stone article that's in my pants, and it said that the protesters sort of just are upset with everything. A lot of people have been likening these protests to what occurred in Egypt in the Middle East, this past summer and spring. And while I kind of get that because of, police brutality and them people generally wanting, the government, a huge change, I don't know if that's quite right. Because, let's face it, American living standards on average are very, very high compared to the rest of the world. And we're still complaining. We still want something fixed. Whereas, the standards in Egypt, the Middle East, were probably quite a bit different. The whole situation was probably quite a bit different. It was kind of more serious. No offense, I get people are upset and, they're not living how they want to live and the system's screwed up. And it makes it very difficult to, if you born into lower class, to ever get to a higher class. And I get all that. I'm not denying that. But I'm just saying that, my thing with the Occupy movement is, people are kind of protesting, but they actually don't have it that bad. But I do think something needs to change, definitely. And I do think these movements are powerful, and they're showing that people are upset. And it does kind of remind me of, a little kid. You know how really little, babies, when they get upset by things, they're hungry or whatever, they'll start crying. But the problem is they don't know why they're upset. So, they can't tell you. If you ask them, why are you crying? Why are you upset? They would not be able to tell you. They just know something is wrong and they would like it fixed, so they just start crying. And that's kind of what this whole movement reminds me of. Okay, now let's focus on Davis, because that's what I find particularly interesting. All the UC protests are slightly different from the other Occupy protests. They're more about not raising the tuition at the UCs, because the idea behind the UC is that they're public universities that are very, very good. You can get a good four-year college education, but they're actually cheap. And in the past, 10 or 15 years, something like that, the price has gone from $5,000 to $12,000, but people are predicting that by, 2013 to 2015, it's going to be $22,000, which is ridiculous, because there goes the whole cheap thing. And so the idea is, if you're poor, you still can't get an education, and so then how are you ever supposed to get out of that poor class? So it's still all related to the Occupy movement. But it's more of an idea where I actually kind of get it, why you're protesting, because the thing is, you protest in Wall Street and you're this is upsetting me. What do you want Wall Street to do about it? I mean, what are they what do you want them to realistically do? Because they're not going to do a whole bunch. But if a whole bunch of students protest at a UC, okay, the administration might be able to do more things. And I do understand that budget cuts that are causing the UCs to raise tuitions are not the UC's fault. It's California's budget crisis. But that doesn't change the fact that the UCs are taking these budget cuts and moving them to classes, teachers, etc., not to administrator salaries. Okay, now moving on to police brutality, which is the part that really got me interested in all this. Basically, at UC Davis, there was these protesters, and they camped out on the quad, or not the quad, but a green area, and they were told they were allowed to do this, but they had to leave the next day, and they didn't leave the next day. And so the chancellor, who's in charge of sort of these kinds of things, called the police on them and said, move the students. And there's different reports. According to all my friends at Davis, who have talked to, who are friends with the protesters, what occurred was that, they were all protesting. There was a whole bunch of people, still in their camps and stuff. Someone ran up and was like, the police are coming. Everyone was freaking out. So they all sat down, arms linked, kind of around the general campsite to try to, say, look, we're peaceful. We're not gonna we're not like a violent protest, but we just, you know, are trying to protect our little camp. And so what happened is the police came up, and now, according to the police, they were surrounded by students and could not get out of the circle. There is video footage and pictures of them stepping over the sitting students, clearly not surrounded by them. And also, the thing is, sitting down and like linking arms is like universally kind of a sign of peace. It's kind of a sign of nonviolent submission. And like in prisons, for example, if you sit down during a riot and a guard does anything to you, any kind of violence, that guard is in so much trouble because you're not allowed to do that to someone sitting down because it's a sign of, I'm not going to participate in this. I'm being nonviolent. And so what happened was the police officers, there's video footage, again, in my pants, just walked up and just sprayed these students who were sitting down. Now, okay, they were told to leave and they didn't leave. However, according to the students, the police officers were saying something about leave, something about, we'll remove you by force, but the students didn't hear them because there was so much shouting. I believe it. There's so much shouting in that video, you can't hear a damn thing. And so what's horrifying people is the fact that this police officer pepper sprayed all these people who were sitting. It's weird. It's not okay. And then they dragged these people off, and, there was, legit injuries. And this was including a professor, and it's just ridiculous. And so what happened, which is really cool, is that everyone was upset with the chancellor, who, of course, called the police on this. And after this occurred, gave an announcement saying that she was actually okay with what happened. Everyone was upset. And so they all gathered in front of, her where she was, her office building. She didn't leave until very late. There's rumors why. A lot of people think it's because she was scared. And instead of yelling, instead of all, yelling at her, heckling her, all that kind of stuff, they just took the entire path from her, office to her car and stood and sat there along the path and stared at her silently. Again, video in my pants. It's intense. Yes, something in my pants is intense. Good Lord. But seriously, the video of them just standing there and staring at her, whoa, very powerful. So, craziness is going down. It's 2011. I think the reason I'm so interested in this stuff is because it is 2011. It's happening right now. And you hear about this kind of stuff, police brutality, huge, massive protests, particularly on campuses, as happening in the 60s. You don't hear about it as happening now. You don't think it would happen now. You certainly don't think the police brutality would happen now against peaceful protesters who are sitting down. But it's happening. And that's crazy. And I feel weird because I'm not in the middle of it. I'm not. There's no protest here. It's a private university. If you're cutting budget cuts, the question would be, who are you angry at? The people that own the university that you chose to go to that's private? No. So, there's not really protest here. And, there was Occupy Chicago, but, I don't know. I guess the whole financial sector of things just doesn't really apply to me that much yet because I don't really have to pay serious bills yet or, do serious banking or stocks yet. I know that's bad that I don't care about something that doesn't apply to me, but I guess I just don't really get it still. But the whole, Occupy UC thing, it for sure is something I care strongly about. It applies to me because it affects so many of my friends. And, it's happening, but I'm not a part of it. But I'm also not just reading about a history textbook. It's happening right now. And that's weird. All right, Hannah, I'll see you on Saturday, hopefully. Please make a video. Okay, bye.